Okay, before the break, we were starting to look at different ways we have to set up colors and talking about what they mean. All the homework assignments this semester are just to, they tell you what to do in the homework assignments, like type this color, type these symbols to get the color somebody else planned up there, or type those symbols, and they just put that in the homework. For most of the assignments this semester, we are into module 3 now. So real quick, I want to point at something related to module 3. If you haven't looked at the next week's work yet. There it is. There it is. So, and things keep moving on me. Okay, I think stuff stopped moving now. So in the module 3 assignments, you'll see there's the final project topic selection and outline. So that's something that is due this week, which you'll probably already have some ideas in mind for. Basically, you're going to make a website yourself, something of interest, a static website. So you're providing information. You're displaying information on the web page about a particular topic you find interesting. Just let me know what topic you want, and most topics will be good. So whatever you find interesting that you would like to make a website for the example, y'all can read the instructions there. I think I put it in here. Yeah. I'm a big fan of templates in classrooms. In learning environments, templates are great because that document tells you what to write, where to write it at. So that's what I said to do for the final project thing. Just go to Google and search for free project proposal template. And there's lots and lots and lots of them on here after we get past the ads. This one right here is one that has been around for years, 17 free project proposal templates. I've used these we've done these quite a few times, but a whole bunch of templates that are set up for a project proposal. So like a Google Docs template or a Word template, or some longer ones. They have different levels of information, but I'll go through the Google Docs template. This was the normal situation of just ignore the ads, and then it should open up before long. Oh, nice. This one comes with instructions. The template's locked down, so you got to go in here and make a copy. File, make a copy. And then you'll just kind of fill this out for your project proposal. Looks like there's space up there for an image. That's the instructions. So those default instructions there, you might replace with a logo if you have one or something. If you like drawing one or have a nice picture relative to your topic. Just go there and fill it out. What's it called? Who's working on it? Different information, sort of industry standard stuff for developing a thing. The summary, what's it going to be? Y'all can see what all those boxes are. One I want to point out is one we've looked at a couple times in class. These two boxes down here. In a classroom, that's as trivial as can be, right? You're projected schedule, there's a very tight due date on it. So March 15th at 11:59 p.m. That's when the cutoff is. There's no late submissions accepted. That's like usually pretty laid back, except late work up until that final cutoff date. Because before the class even started, we knew when that final cutoff was going to be. So I never accept anything after that. So there's a hard deadline on it. Same thing for a budget. The budget's going to be zero. Don't go spending money. All you're going to do, don't go spending more money. All you're going to do is type up HTML, use CSS to make it look nice. Insert some pictures and stuff. Tell me about something you're interested in. Then host it and all that. But those are trivial in a classroom, but in the real world, those are the only 2 lines your client's going to care about. How much does it cost and when do they get it? So in a classroom, it's a good place to get practice with those. Break the schedule down into predictive amounts. The final result is due by March 15th. So today's February 2nd. So say something like maybe by February 20th, have this much done, have this much done. Then on March 7th, be at this point, have everything up there, the media, works on phone devices, on phones, desktops, laptops, all different size devices. And then just some final cleanup and additional things added in the last week or so. Bring it down into a schedule just to get some practice with that. And then afterwards, look at that schedule that you made up beforehand and see where you got off of your initial estimations so that in the future, you're better at estimating something like that. As far as the budget, make up numbers. I'm not going to pay you for the homework that it's due, but I feel very strongly that that's a good thing to practice here. So make up what you would charge, make up some numbers that you would charge a real client for this, and do the same thing that, like I just suggested with the schedule. From the end of the semester, how far were you from your original estimate? And that way you can modify your next estimate on something like that and get some practice at it while moving to your classes in school. Otherwise, just find a template you like the colors of. That's what it really amounts to. Find a free one you like the colors of and fill it out and let me know what you plan on making for the course project. Oh, and then a site map. Just the tree structure of what it's going to look like. I guess I should talk about that today. I'm gonna make a note. Site structures. Since that's due this week, there's really only 3 types of those, and everything in the book is a hierarchy, and the one here is a hierarchy. So we should probably look at the other 2 before the day's out. But a couple more things with colors first. If you have any questions, let me know about that. The next thing on our colors, still looking at things we can call as a function, is one that artists say is very, very intuitive. Takes a little bit of practice getting used to it. I meant to grab colored markers and I forgot, but I'll use labels. And that's going to be HSL or HSLA. Because again, we have the alpha version. We have one version that is just a solid opaque color, and the other one is includes an alpha to indicate transparency, with 0 being completely transparent and 1 being completely opaque. And what this is, we enter 3 numbers. So we have our U, saturation, and then the L, or the U, which I'm going to talk about U and saturation here in just a second. Oh, and what the L stands for. Saturation, the L, and then the alpha value. I can write an alpha on the board because again, we only have an A on the keyboard, so that's when we type. That's what we use when we type, but it's beyond just computer stuff. That's what transparency is. Material science, physics. Yeah, that's just the general symbol for transparency. But it's not on our keyboard, so as programmers, we have to make that little adjustment. And the L, you might hear different things coming for the L. Because when they originally named it, it's computer science people, and that throws a lot of people off. Computer science is the science, that's a research field. A lot of people end up in the wrong field because they just see the word computer there and think that's what they should be studying. But the research aspect of it being a science is the prevalent part in that field. I think it throw a lot of people off as far as going into that one because they want to study computers and that's the word first, but they don't necessarily want to do the rigid scientific research and end up in not the spot that interests them the most. So when the researchers originally named this U and saturation, those are big words, but they called it luminescence. Which is not a word in most people's vocabulary, right? That's kind of a big, fancy, pretentious sounding word. So it went through a couple other iterations, but the average artist certainly didn't regularly use the word luminescence. So anymore, we call that lightness. The light or the lightness. Photoshop's very common and some other paint software. So you may have also seen an HSV, which is hue, saturation, and brightness, which does the same thing. Brightness is a good term for it. It's how much light there is. And what these numbers do, well, the alpha does the same thing. So we'll just see that applied. Is we have a little circle. And yeah, I meant to grab some markers. Are there any here? There's a green and a red. I don't see a blue marker in here. But I'll just use the words. My office is just right across the hall here, but no need to stop. So as we move around that circle, there's different distinctions. So usually we refer to the top as 0 degrees. And that's our U number is going around the circle. 0 degrees, which is also 360 degrees. And that's where red is located. And as we move clockwise around the circle, about a third of the way around, we get 120 degrees. And that's where we find our green. We keep going around 2/3 of the way around the circle, 240 degrees around that circle. This is where we get our blue. And that's our red, green, and blue mix by going around this circle. So like around the clock, they went clockwise, so you can think of it almost like hours, like 12 o'clock, what would third way, 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock, or degrees. For CSS, we enter into degrees. So 0 or 360 degrees for the H's are red. And then it mixes values of red and green. So it's kind of like these two values going up. Red's at 255 and green's at 0. As we go around, we get more green. And there's some other subtleties that get a little detailed after you do it a couple times. It'll kind of make more sense with the picture. And the saturation, so that's our U. Which is also referred to as the tone of the color. We also get some blue in there, so we get other colors to go around. It's not super strict, super explicit, but once you see it once, it will make sense. Some of the numbers will make sense. So just try typing in different degrees and see what happens. It should make sense. The saturation
is the intensity. How intense is the color? Or density. The intensity or density of the color. Is it just a subtle hint of that color? Or is it like a thoroughly soaked in the color? Yeah, that might be a good thing, related to like tie-dye stuff. Right? I assume everybody's seen a tie-dye t-shirt. Was the original white shirt just quickly dipped in the dye? Or did they just stick it in the dye and leave it there for 10 minutes? That's what our saturation is. How much of that dye would have been soaked into a tie-dye t-shirt, depending on the amount of time it was left in the dye. And then washed, got wear out over time, and then it kind of goes the other way. So that's our saturation. 0% is black. Oh, wait, that's like, I started looking at the wrong notes. It's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. That's not where black goes. And that goes from 0% up to 100%. And that's not a percent sign. Degrees there, then percent in the second number, which again, CSS knows the percent sign, so you can either use the percent sign or the decimal, whichever one you're more comfortable with. So really it's a number between 0 and 1. None and all are good words to use for that. And the last value, the lightness, well, last of the HSL, the alpha means the same thing it did up here. 1 is completely opaque, 0 is completely transparent. So just fade smoothly across the two. Lightness is how bright it is, which again is a number from 0 to 100%. And artists really like this one. People that I think everybody in this class is more in the programming pathway, but people who study the art aspect themselves the art aspect more, really like HSL, because I think about this circle, and then our saturation is like how far out from the center are we? So like 0% and out to 100%. And then we can get that intensity level based off that, of where we're at in that circle and how far around we go. Kind of like a clock. How far around the clock do we go, and then how far out towards the edge do we go? And it's those numbers. And then we add to that the lightness. So what sort of room are we in? Are we in a really bright room or a really dark room? Like a rheostat switch, so that our lights have that whole range between on and off, instead of just fully on or fully off. So artists find that one very intuitive to work with. Some of y'all may like it. It's personal preference. Since this is a learning environment, I'm certainly going to suggest trying all three. Mix and match all of our colors, actually all 4. We've seen 3 so far. So name colors, RGB stuff, HSL stuff, and then 1 more after this. So to see that, let's look at another type of selector. Show that inheritance selector. They haven't really looked at classes yet. They were in the homework. And you can see it tried to predict that in the article there. Then move a class in here. So class is I'll call it pair 1. We just make up a name. Some sort of way to uniquely identify this one. So again, the class attribute
is para one. Has made up that name, paragraph one, color. And then when we refer to it in the CSS, we use our dot notation. So the thing that goes before the dot is implied. Those who have seen object-oriented programming and other courses, I'm going to leave it off because it's pretty much never typed in CSS. But if you've seen object-oriented programming elsewhere, and you've heard me talk about parent-child relationships here today, you probably are. It shouldn't take long to figure out what goes before the dot, but I'm going to omit that from the class lecture here because pretty much nobody uses it, especially in HTML CSS. And we just start with the dot because it's obvious what goes before the dot. So it's just dot and then our class name. So para one is another way to select it. So those paragraphs will give some sort of HSL color. So background, color, hue, saturation, and lightness. And then it's on the predictive text there. So you can see up to 360 degrees, up to 100%, up to 100%. So how far around that circle did we go? So like 2 is almost straight up. That's way up here at the reds. We're just slightly off the red. Let's go maybe halfway out. 56%. And then how bright is it? So I'll make it dark first, 32. So I just kind of randomly pick those numbers, some degree of how far around the circle we are. Oh, and don't forget your percent sign. 32 would not be about a valid number there. You do 0.32, which y'all have seen in math classes, those sort of numbers show up all the time in the real world. So we have an easier way to say those. We just move our decimal over and throw a special unit on it. Percent, like penny. So that many per 100, because it's so common. Excuse me. Just makes it fit in a sentence nicely. Goes off the tongue better. So I reload this now. You can see it just got those 2 paragraphs. So one of those was inside an article tag, but the other one was off by itself. So the only way to kind of connect them together is to give them the same class name. So there's a selector and then the HSL thing. And that came out a pretty close match. I wasn't expecting it to be that close of a match to what it was above. The way those colors overlaid on top of each other, and then that one, it looks pretty close. But if we come further around our circle, like maybe I don't know, 185 degrees, move further out to 56 to like 78, and then turn up the lights a little bit more. So like 50%. Turn the lights up halfway. So now we've moved on around our circle. So we're somewhere between the green and blue prevalence and moved a little bit further out. So it should be more saturated as far as the color. And we turned up the, like how bright the room around it is. The color looks kind of like that. I'm not really designing these things. I'm just talking about the syntax. So I'm randomly making up the colors. And you also in the color picker, we have Hsl options. So it looks like we're somewhere right around here. That looks like pretty close to what we picked in, or like pick some green number, red number. Notice that way over here, it's like 0 when we start moving. 350, so it's close to 360 degrees. kind of goes across there, and then down the 200s. And here's the area between the greens, somewhere around 120 here, or green. Then it kind of goes into the yellows and fades back to a red right as we get back to 100 degrees. So it's like that bar, which you'll see something like that in most every color picker, spun around into a circle. And then we fill out that circle in between saturation, like way inside the middle or way out. And again, to see these changes, a really good place to look is over in the inspector. So you can hit F12 and get to that. It just changes in live time. So if we change the lightness on here, we go down to like 10%. You see it's very, very dark. Or 90%, see the other extreme. It's getting very, very bright. So I'll put that back in the middle. And we could change the percent here. So go down to like 23%. You see that it's the blue had less effect on it, I guess. It's kind of grayish. If we move that up to 89%, that blue is having a lot more effect. This is a little bit added in, and then the percentage is like how much blue did we put in there? How much of our color did we put in there? And the U is the color itself. So like numbers down close to 0 or 360 degrees, because it's all the way around the circle. It's gonna be reds. Like 120s are our greens. 240, 30 of the way around circles, it's gonna be blue. And you can just make those changes to see those different effects. In your homework assignments, they just tell you what color to use, but for your final project, you'll be picking the colors. So there's some trial and error for that. I'm doing another thing. I'm going to use another class selector. Got a pair of words to show the other HSL one. This time I'm going to do color. Just to help express this point. I remember HTML is all about text. So the ones that aren't specific, like you say color, instead of background color, that's referring to the text color, the foreground color. If it's not explicit what it is, like background, then it's probably referring to text with CSS. So we also have HSLA, which is the same thing. How far around that circle do we go? Maybe, I don't know, 112. Some sort of saturation. How much of that tone or that hue is applied to this color? Let's say 43%. And how bright is it? So 87%. I like it's really bright here. Like the light switches, rheostat light switch is turned way up, so it's really bright in there. We can see the color really well. Versus when the lights are almost off, we can tell something's there, but we can't really make out what color it is. So that's going to change the text on something. And the reason I wanted to do that is we'll change the text here. We can have more than one class. Which is something I'll try to work in somewhere. It's a different way to categorize things. So this paragraph has two classes. It shares a background with this one, but then it has this other class which explicitly states the foreground. And we could do a different foreground with it. Oh, probably not that foreground. Sometimes random stuff just kind of like hurts the eyes. So let's turn that down, like 57 and move that a little bit more towards there. Gray, that's hard to see. Oh, wait. I didn't put the last number in there, did I? I meant to put the alpha on there. Go back to what I had. Is we can also apply some transparency. So let's say like 67%, about 2/3 of the way opaque. Not a great color. If I do 120, it'll match it really nicely. Right around 120. Still looks awful green, so maybe it's needs more saturation. And we'll do stuff like this. Kind of try different colors. Switch those out. Let's see what that does. Something green. Maybe darker. 17%. Since it's on the light background, there we go. And that's kind of the process. These things can't be predicted. Just do that picture up there. In a lot of ways, if you have the basic idea of what you're wanting to do, you'll use that rough estimate prediction, like around the circle and how far out the circle you are and how bright it is in the room that you're looking at the object in. It's your rough starting point, and then just refine the numbers to find the one you want. And the other thing there is notice the two classes. So we have multiple classes, which is another popular way to organize our selectors. Over in the CSS sheet here, I'll try to do it the other way at some point. I tend to go with, my mind works better with this categorization. We set our style rules up based off the paragraphs, or based off the section, and based off the tag it is. But we could set up classes like blue stuff, set up the color blue we want, and then red stuff, and green stuff, and have class names like that. And then we use different versions of those classes in the tags and find it. So I guess it's kind of like this way, the way this style sheet is set up is we're organizing it by selector. But we can turn that around and organize by property and put all of our blue stuff together. And then put all of our tall stuff together or short stuff and organize it based off the properties rather than off the style sheet. Or rather than off the tags, like this style sheet. Lots and lots of different ways to do it. We have lots and lots of freedom. It takes a little bit of practice to get to it, get used to all of it. One more type of color I want to see. I'll stick it in the footer. This one you've probably seen before if you've done much programming. Websites are usually handled by teams. And teams are built up of people with different expertise, right? It can be a programmer and a graphics person, an artist, I'll just use that word. So they have different expertise. So CSS has all of these things that artists are used to using. Most of the time in programming, we want to do it directly. And we set our colors up with hexadecimal color, hexadecimal encoding. Which we abbreviate and just say hex color. There's different ways to notate it depending on the programming language to explicitly say that we're working in hexadecimal. Anyone has not seen that before. Hexadecimal is base 16 encoding. Humans, because of our 10 fingers, at least humans are 10 fingers, so 10 seems a good number. Other cultures, I don't have my camera here, so I can point something on my hand. Like one you've probably heard of before is the base 60, which is our counting on our hands as well. Most people don't realize it, but you have 3 sections in each of your fingers. So if you count those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We did count to 12 5 times. Or really like a clock, count to 5 12 times. That's the base 60, it's still counting on your fingers. But in America, we just do the easy one and go with 10. The computers work on binary, which is base 2 in numbers when we start doing math with it. And 2 and 10 don't really work out so well together. The most difficult thing working with binary is that it's too simple for the human mind. We need things to be more complicated than that. So it's like, okay, binary is too simple for the human mind. We need something more complicated. 10 works great for us. 2 is too small, so can we make 2 bigger? So looking for another number to base all our stuff off of. It needs to go directly into binary. So it can only be made up of 2s. When we factor it down and do all that, we have to make it up entirely from 2s so that it relates directly to binary, but it needs to be big enough a human can work with. So if we start making them 2 bigger, square it, that gives us 4. That's bigger, but that's still a little small for human mind. So let's square that again. Then we get 16. That's a little bigger than 10, the number we're most used to here in the modern world, but not much bigger than 10. Relates directly to 2. That one might be pretty good. If we check what we can do and follow that pattern again, we square it again, we get up to 256. So that would definitely be too big. So 16, whenever we need to work directly in binary, we can write that to a base 16. No, use 16 as our numerical basis for that data. Works better for humans. It relates directly to binary. And for different bases, for base 2, we have the symbols 0 and 1. Base 10, the one we're most used to, for those who haven't seen it before, we have the symbols 0 through 9 are digits. So when we get to base 16, well, base implies we're doing numerical or mathematical things. We still want to use our digits first. So we have 0 through 9, but we need a few more symbols. So typically we use A through F, which again is something that you can just count on your hands if you're not used to it. I'll turn this camera on so you can see my hand. It doesn't show up quite so well across the room. But if you remember, A is 10. So 0 through 9, then A is 10. So 10, A, B, C, D, E, F. So we can still count there quite easily on our fingers. Just remember, A is 10, so you've already used all your fingers, and you're back to the beginning. So then B, C, D, E, F, and you count 11 to 15 quite easily, which gives us the 16 numbers for our base. So it makes things easier for a human, but we're working directly in binary. And typically we do what's a good way to lead into this? So we're kind of past this in the modern world, but way back in the day when computers were first being invented, and for those of us who still like to just periodically experiment with stuff and plug things up, start plugging up transistors and chips ourselves, we don't use quite as big of numbers as these ones that are built entirely by machines. I mean, I think the early days when everything had to be built by hand, started with 8 bits, which is one of the words you had to remember. Kind of small in the modern world, but that's the basis of things. 8 bits is 1 byte. So that's what we really want to do for our colors, is 1 byte of data. So remember, those 1s and 0s are actually turning
switches, that is flipping a switch on and off. On your screen. So it would be nice if we could give one byte to each of our colors, red, green, and blue, which that picture was erased, because that's what we need to mix for source light to do. You get that? So in CSS, and if we type this directly in HTML, we'll use the hashtag, #, number symbol, to indicate to the computer that we have a hexadecimal color. That's actually a function. It's an old notation that does not get used anymore. But back in the 70s, before keyword followed by parentheses was common, we would use special symbols for our functions. And so this is a very, very old symbol for functions that doesn't really show up elsewhere anymore. So that tells the computer we want hexadecimal. And then we want 1 byte for each one. The thing about base 16 encoding is, remember, we found that number from squaring 2 and then squaring it again. So it's really 4 squared. The 4 being the important part there, because we modified 4 to find our base. So if we had 4 bits, like 1001, that translates directly to a hexadecimal number, which is the main purpose of them. We're not going to do it here, but the most important thing about hexadecimal is to translate between binary and decimal. So we just take 4 bits at a time. And anytime you work in hex, you're actually working in binary. You're working in binary 4 bits at a time. What's something else? Maybe a 5. So then we have a 9 and a 5. And that gives us 1 byte for red. And the same thing for green and blue. And this is the most consistent way to get colors across every machine, because you are directly turning on and off the LEDs that make up the pixel. Like, okay, turn these LEDs on, these red LEDs on in that pixel. And maybe 1011, 0011, 1100, 1111. And then, yeah, hexadecimal is working in binary, so we just take our byte, split it in half, and then look at each half separately. So 1011 is going to be 11. So 10 is A, then B comes next. So 11, when we write that, we'll usually write a B. I'm going to mix it. I'm going to write a lowercase b. Give this a try. I'll leave this for you all to try to see if this works. Then over here, we have a 3, which is still one of our original digits. What's next? 12. So B is 11. We start back at A, B, C, and we'll get 12. We know what digit we're on. All ones is 15. So that's got to be our last symbol, because that one's kind of easy to get to. And notice I wrote at least one of those uppercase and one of those lowercase. I'll leave it to you to try and see if that works. Our different machines, because remember we talked about case sensitivity and stuff in our strings, like file names and things. So give that a check. See about case sensitivity in hexadecimal. And this is the one that programmers usually use. This is what you will need to do if you want to make absolute certain that that color is the same on every monitor it looks at. Because we are actually saying turn these 4 red pixels on and these 4 red LEDs and these 4 red LEDs off for that particular pixel. Turn these that's 5 green LEDs on and these 3 green LEDs off for that particular pixel. So that's the one that will always be the same on every machine. So when you have things like official colors, right? A lot of companies have official colors or sports teams. There's definitely going to be an official color for your sports team, right? University of Kentucky blue does not match the who's somebody else who uses blue? Rams. They have blue in their uniforms, but those are not the same type of blue. So for something like a sports team, is it LA Rams? Or did they move? I think they're still in LA. I don't watch a whole lot of football, but I'm pretty sure they have blue in their uniform. Could be wrong about that altogether. I haven't watched football in years. But some team with 2 different teams that have blue uniforms, it probably not going to be the exact same blue, and their fans will be in all kinds of an uproar if you get it wrong. So in cases like that, you definitely want to use hexadecimal so you have absolute control over the machine, and that color will always be exactly the same. And yeah, it's just old notation for that. So I'll put that in the footer. So like last selector to look at here. Oh, I should share the screen. Let me erase what I just typed and find my screen share button. There it is. So we'll just put this in the footer. Background. Some hex colors. So we're going to start with that symbol, which it is a really old way of writing functions on a language old enough that pretty much all of our other programming languages have descended from. Everything modern computers do has come down from when we use symbols like that to say function. But that's getting off on the side tangent. We need that symbol to say we have a hex color. So maybe like a 4D A, B, E8. So we have the digits 0 through 9 and A through F if you haven't seen hex before. And if you haven't seen it before, you will see it quite often in the IT stuff, because hexadecimal means we are working directly in binary. We're just working in binary 4 bits at a time. And it's great for conversions. If you have a decimal number, base 10 number, and need to get to binary, the easiest way to get there is to turn that into a base 16 number, just divide it by 16, and you have the quotient and remainder. And then that quotient and remainder each turn into 4 bits. So it really makes conversions easy. Oops, I forgot color. If anybody notices me doing stuff like that, feel free to speak up, because I am talking and typing double when I'm up here. So typos are quite likely to happen. So I'll do another one that's got like maybe a lot of red, just a little bit of green. Oh, maybe I'll do a lot of green, D1, and just a little bit of blue, like 87. And just like we saw earlier, all zeros is black, all F's is white. And if there's equal amounts of red, green, and blue, it's a gray. And if your numbers are going to match, I did not do that anywhere. So like maybe your green is going to be CC, and your red is going to be 44. So you have like 44 CC 77, and each group is the same like that. In that case, you can abbreviate it to 3 digits, but that might get confusing, so I wasn't even going to show that in class. Just an abbreviation. I thought I'd at least mention it. in case you see it. So there's what those colors look like, and that is hexadecimal working in binary, so that's direct control over what the LEDs in the pixel are doing. So that is the way to get colors that are always going to be exactly the same no matter what machine they're on. So very important for like sports teams where their fans will become very, very angry if you get that color wrong. Or a lot of companies are going to have official colors, an official company color, things like that. Country flags. So I guess country flags tend to only use the basic ones. But that's sort of idea on colors. Oh, never did one other unique identifier you saw in the homework. We also do IDs along with classes. IDs are really easy to use. So ID equals FP. I'll do that. The footer paragraph. And again, with just like with the class, what comes before that symbol, we use this symbol to say we have an ID, and something comes before it as far as object oriented, but only a few of the people in here probably studied object oriented in much detail. Actually, I know a bunch of y'all are in the class with me tomorrow night, and that's going to study object oriented stuff in enough detail to that level of detail. But there's some stuff before it that's obvious, so we can start with the hashtag. We'll look at it here in a second. Then I give the ID FP. Background dash color of I'll put another X color on here. I'll do the 3-digit ones, so 3CA. So if there's only 3 hex digits, that's like saying 33CCAA. They're just duplicated. I'll go ahead and show it. I mentioned it. That kind of changed the whole thing. We have some padding here. Padding 1.7 EM. So remember, EM is the size of the largest letter in the font. Probably a capital M or a capital W. Those are usually going to be the same, but it bases, and your sizes are based off your data. I just threw that in there so that the footer, that paragraph wouldn't completely fill up the footer, and we can see there's a difference between them. We're going to talk about the padding stuff soon. One last thing I want to look at with this, if we open the, open the inspector, over in elements, these things that have like classes and IDs, so like this one has a class. Well, last time I looked at that, it showed it. It would show it there. Last time I looked at it, showed what went before there, but it's fine. So it would just be like P and hashtag P, or yeah, or footer goes before the parent. And then that last thing I did, just to add a little bit of spacing. This is something we're going to look at next week. Start spreading things out because we're going to talk about white space. That's a very important aspect on our web pages. You can tell from this that when there's nothing but that lorem ipsum text on the page, it gets very, very cluttered. We need some white space to spread that stuff out. And that's padding and margins. We'll get to that next week. Does anybody have any questions about colors? I think that was most of what I had in the notes for colors. Things in the fonts and non-breaking spaces, we were talking about those. Because one other thing I wanted to talk about
I assume that means there's no questions about colors then? Y'all are gonna wanna try those. Remember, open up your inspector, go to the source files and you can edit it directly to see the changes and start to get a feel for what these are gonna do, because you're gonna want this stuff for your own site. And all the homework assignments, they tell you what colors to use, so that doesn't fully prepare you for choosing your own colors. I'm gonna go ahead and erase this off the board. This has been up here for a minute. So part of the final project is to do a site hierarchy. And well, all the stuff the textbook talks about seems to be related to I don't remember where you can continue. Seems to be highly structured. It's all there's a home page and then branch off of that home page. There's several subpages for that, and each of those have subpages for them. It's a nice defined hierarchy. Looks like a pyramid. I was looking for another set of notes, but we're coming on the end. So this is an abbreviated version. When I get to the other set of notes, we'll talk about this stuff in more detail. But it's nice and structured. It's a hierarchy where we have our home page, page 1, page 2, page 3. I guess another way to think of this is categorized. Because then we can break these down into subcategories. Maybe that's it for this one, but this page would have a couple subcategories. So like page 3.1 and page 3.2. Or this one would have a couple subcategories. Maybe 3 of them. 1.1, kind of ran out of room there. 1.2, 1.3, just for some random categorization. This is what the textbook does over and over again. So I think you've seen this a couple times. And like 1.3.1, 1.3.2, and we get up with this nice pyramid structure of categorizing that site map. Is it okay if I erase the rest of this stuff? All the color stuff. It's been up here for a minute. I have lots of ways to do colors. You're definitely going to practice with that. But before we break off for time to practice with that, I just want to talk about these site structures. So our textbook does that on all of them. There's a couple other very common ones that your sites might follow. Could be a linear site. Tutorials are a great example of linear sites. Instead of the hierarchy, we start with our home page, and then there's sort of a specific order to go through things. Then we have page 1, then page 2, page 3. Y'all can kind of see where that's going. It follows a specific order that we want to look at the page. And we just navigate, be able to access all of them. We still want to be able to jump around, right? The standard example of this would be like a tutorial. So if we get up here to lesson 3 and suddenly get confused, like, what's he talking about? We might need to jump back to lesson 1, and we don't want to go all the way to the home page and back through it again. So we need a way to navigate between them, but there is an explicit order to it. There's sort of an implied order. That often shows up in class projects because it's something you're interested in. So there's a good chance that thing you're interested in is something that needs to be covered in a specific order. A linear site. The other one is sort of a random
randomness. I'm just gonna use the word random for now. And that is where it's just a conglomeration of pages that are connected together. Wikipedia would be a good example of that. Wikipedia does have a homepage, right? Most people have probably never looked at it. Only time I've ever looked at it is in the examples for this class right here. There is a homepage, wikipedia.org, I always say .com. But there's not like what comes next. All Wikipedia, the homepage for Wikipedia just gives us a search bar. Because what is the next thing on a site like Wikipedia? It's just randomized, right? There's lots and lots of pages. We have our home kind of in the middle. And then as far as the structure, it's just wherever we can fit the things in. Page 2 down here. Page 3. Page 4. I'll skip up to page 7 because maybe page 5 and 6 just disappeared to indicate that randomness. Page 8, page 9, page 10, but it's just sort of a random conglomeration. They're related, like Wikipedia. Everything on there is a Wikipedia entry. But the connections are very, very, very loose. There's not a structure we can put it in. We can't categorize it. There's not a specific order to go through Wikipedia in. It's just kind of random. So that's our 3 main types of site diagrams. I want to make sure and write them out here before this weekend because that's, you want one of those or have to submit one of those for your final project proposal. But this is an active subject. We learn by doing. Right? It's I'll point you in some directions. You're going to learn a whole lot more by doing this stuff. So I'll make sure there's lots of time to do it. What do we have? 3:25, so that leaves an hour and a half. That's okay. This day worked out nicely. That's what I'm usually trying to look for and split. So it looks like we did an hour and 10 minutes, then an hour and 3 minutes, and an hour and a few minutes left for lab time to go apply these concepts. So definitely the suggestion for today's lab time is going to be mess around with colors. Put a few things on there, get some HTML set up with some random stuff. Maybe a Laura Gibson would add there. Throw in various ways to do your selectors, to kind of choose or get some practice with the classes and IDs and type selectors before we add more to those lists. I think that's the only ones our textbook shows, but there's a couple others that are really, really useful, so I want to make sure and show those. I'm going to go ahead and upload the files from today to Affinity Free. That way, if you want to reference them during lab time, you can see what we typed up here. Or I'll do this here in just a second. To save time on what I just suggested for typing up in lab time, you can just copy them directly. I'll bring this in here, and these Zoom thumbnails are constantly getting in the way. Right, upload this. Check the site. So remember, this is different than the other one. Yeah, SDEV-153.apz.com. And then that folder from today with all the twos in the date. And if you right click and view page source, obviously you can copy and paste that very, very quickly and have a good starting point to work with and do colors and stuff. And there's a link to the CSS right there. So you can see all the code that we did in class here. You can just check that there on the website.
And it should update quickly. Remember about caching. So your computer might be trying to look at the old version, but it doesn't seem to be updating. It is a free site, so sometimes it might be lagging. But if it seems like it's taking longer than it should to update, make sure you clear your cache. If you open the inspector and long click on the refresh button, then you have an empty cache button for this site alone, so you don't have to get rid of your whole history. If you have like cookies from sites you regularly go to, or other things saved that you don't want to clear, you can clear explicitly from that site. That might help if there's problems with refresh things, but yeah, that one right there is our code example from today. And these color picker inputs are really, really nice for matching colors because it's right there by your thing. So it's an active subject. We learn by doing. It's time to do stuff. As always, text messages and Ivy Learn messages like always on my phone. That is the quickest way to get a hold of me. And from now to 4:50, I will pretty much just be sitting here waiting for a message in case you all have questions. Then I can jump back on the Zoom call in a split second and address those questions. We give it some practice. Try randomly changing those color things and getting used to that. Otherwise, does anybody have any questions in general?
I got one.
Yeah.
Not a general question. It's a specific. I need to submit my work, and I'm having trouble doing that.
Okay, we will look at that. I might as well do it here. Anybody else have trouble with submitting work?
I didn't have any issues for the ones that are due today, at least.
Okay. There was something that might not have been clear. How do you give me the screenshots and the URL both? I'll go ahead and do it on the recording, just in case.
Oh, I did have an issue with like trying to submit both a URL and screenshots. For some reason, it just was allowing both documents. At least I can see both documents being put on there.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I do that on purpose because I like to check your problem solving abilities. This is in the programming field. Typing is easy. Programming is about problem solving ability. So I like to work subtle little problems like that in there for you all to solve.
Yeah, my second attempt, I just put the screenshots and then commented the URL. I'm not sure if that was good or not, but
That works. You can do attachments in the comments as well. I've seen that. I just like to check. I found that's one of the nice little ways to subtly check problem solving abilities. Yeah, so remember that site, SDEV-153.pc.com, and that's today's example. So now if we go to Ivy Learn. Oh, I probably could have kept that back open, couldn't I? Moving that back up. So here's today's example somewhere. This one? Oh, there it is. There it is running on the site, uploaded, everything looks like it's working correctly. It's like, okay, time to submit this. So we can go over to Ivy Learn and by going to our course site here and switch to the student view. So this is what you all are supposed to be looking at, but I have found that that's not always the case, but it's usually pretty close. So once we get Ivy Learn, we'll go to the modules and I guess I'll just do this for week 1 homework or module 2 homework. I know that was on there. So there for your homework assignment. We've seen all this, the start. You hit the start assignment and you can either upload some files and add a comment. That was what Kane was just saying he did, right? Like in order to get both. Oh, I forgot the screenshot. I should take a screenshot. Let me come back over here and Windows Shift S takes a screenshot. And that's sort of a screenshot. So I'll just, that pops up. And we'll save it. I took a screenshot. I don't see it though. Where are they again? Windows Shift S should take a screenshot. Section of that. I guess Zoom call probably slowing it down. Usually something pops up in the corner saying it's ready. Maybe if I stop the screen share, maybe that's affecting it. It's still letting me take more screenshots. There we go. Blocking my button, but there we go. So it popped up in the corner. I was trying to get there in time. It's still over in the messages. Zoom apparently slowed that way down. Once you should take your screenshot, and there's more than one way to do it, so any of them kind of work. As long as you have a way to take a picture of it. But yeah, Windows Shift S seems to be the quickest way. I'll just save it here.
I also do window print screen, which is next to the play button.
Actually, that PRT stands for port screen.
Oh, okay. I never even looked it up. I just assumed print screen was what it meant.
Most people have said print for years and years and years because we always use printers. But there's more than just the printer we can send things to. So, like in the case of a screenshot, it's kind of going back to we're porting out the screen, like the USB port. So what came with the suggestion, Bradley, is go in here and do a file upload and just attach that screenshot. Wherever I saved it at. Yeah, attach the screenshot and then put your URL into the comments. But you can also do that the other way as well. Alternatively, you can come over to the website URL one and paste in the URL. And then in the comments, should be a way to attach it. It used to be a little paper. I don't see it.
After you can go back in the sidebar, and there's a add file button in the comment section if you want to do it that way as well. Like you would submit that, and then the sidebar it shows you where your progress is at for your submission. There's a add file.
Yeah, the add file used to be on that one as well. This is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, like if you go in the corner, like if you submission details.
Thank you. Yeah, that used to be on the actual submission as well. And you can just attach a file here. Either way works. I like to leave that little discrepancy in there in order to check people's problem solving abilities. But I often work those in different ways. Another one, we're going to resubmit. Go to Google Drive and just put the screenshot and the URL into a Google Doc and just share that Google Doc. Just link to that Google Doc. Studio. I guess this is a viable option nowadays. Over in the green navigation, you have Canvas Studio, where you can take, where you can do a screen capture video. Has all that feature functionality in there. You can do a screen capture video. Oh, which by the way, I am going to add screen capture, making a video as an option for that new technology report that's due, which makes it more like a news report on new technology. Because a modern way of reporting the essay, there's no need. There's no need for us to do it the same way it was done in the 1920s. We have much better methods for conveying information than just typing up an essay. So you can use Canvas Studio to do that. If you have questions about that, I can show you, but that would get the information to me. Just do a screenshot and make sure that the picture and the URL are in there somewhere. I would accept that because that's I'm trying to get people to use that more often. And then you can go to Studio and, well, I'm still on the submission link. On those submissions, one of the options is Studio. And you can just hit add video and browse files, upload stuff, or yeah, if you have videos already, I guess I have to cancel out here to get back to that. If you go over to Canvas Studio, yeah, like this, that's fine. This button up here that says record, that will do a screen capture. Just kind of nice software. The very first time you click it, it downloads some software. Then after that, you just hit it and it starts doing screen capture immediately. Really easy to use. If you have any, you can give that a try, and that would be fine. That would kind of work. I'm trying to get people to use that. So there's different ways. Just any way you have that you can get me the URL and the screenshot both. And I like to leave that kind of open to check people's problem solving ability, because this is a programming course. Programming is about problem solving, not about typing. Typing's easy. Most everybody in our society knows how to type already. That's a requirement for just living in America. Programming and programming related things like encoding are problem solving abilities. And that takes practice. Did that answer your question, Bradley?
I guess.
Okay, give one of those a try, see if you can get it up there. And if you have any other trouble, let me know. I'm just gonna be sitting here in my office for the next hour and a half, waiting on stuff. I'll remove the late penalty. I guess it was due a few minutes ago, but I'm pretty laid back. And if you're having trouble, we're gonna make sure. I want you to lose points. If the stuff was finished and you just were having trouble getting it up there. If you have any trouble, let me know. Oh, as far as those late penalties, that's all automated. So what'll happen whenever I remove those, like I just told Bradley I would do, is the computer will apply the late penalty, and then I'll come back and fix it later. I just put your name on a list that says I'm going to take the late penalty off. So it might be a few days before I get it pulled back off, but it's really, really hard to go back and apply specific rules to say, okay, this one's allowed and that one or that. That gets really, really complicated in the rules. So I just apply it to everything and just remove it. Keep a list of the ones that need to remove from afterwards. Any other questions? I assume the silence means no questions. Okay, so that leaves us an hour and 10 minutes. I can learn messages and text messages, make noise on my phone. That's the quickest way to get a hold of me. You can ask me questions anytime, but for the next hour and 10 minutes, I'm just going to be sitting here waiting for you all to ask me questions. And we can hop back on the Zoom call in a split second if you have any. Otherwise, I will see you all on Monday. Y'all have a great weekend. Or tomorrow. I'll see a whole bunch of y'all. See you.